Welcome to the Containment Zone, a place where containment is not always about protection. Sometimes it's a warning, an unfinished sentence in a language we were never meant to understand. Today, we open one of the darkest files in the Foundation's archive, not because it reveals something terrifying, but because it implies something worse. Because what if SCP-682 was never a creature? What if it was a design, a prototype, for something far worse? This isn't the story you were told. This is how it could have happened. And maybe how it already is. The Foundation always called it a creature, a beast, a living weapon. But what they never understood was that SCP-682 was never alive in the traditional sense. Yes, it breathes, it moves, it feeds. But life implies origin, development, chance. 682 doesn't evolve. It adapts instantly. It doesn't survive. It rewrites the rules of survival around itself. It has no ecosystem, no dependency, no place in biology, because it's not part of the tree of life. It's a tool, a forged shape, a system made to test extinction, and we were the testing ground. When the first internal scans were taken, they didn't make sense. No symmetry, no sequence, no recognizable cellular architecture. Every time the creature regenerated, its internal structure changed, but not randomly, with purpose, with refinement, like it was testing configurations. The genome didn't follow any evolutionary branch. Not reptilian, not mammalian, not alien. It followed design logic, functions, parameters, conditional structures, code. And then came the worst discovery. Within its DNA were embedded sequences that describe machines, not metaphorically, blueprints, schematics, structural components, as if its cells weren't living tissue, but a compiled program. Every time the Foundation tried to terminate SCP-682, it didn't defend itself. It observed, it adapted, it learned, but not like a living thing, not with desperation, not with instinct, with precision. They dropped it into SCP-1329, a vat of matter-erasing proto-slurry. It converted its epidermis into something chemically immune within seconds. They exposed it to SCP-239, the reality bender girl. She tried to erase it with her will. It broke through the override in her perception, forced her to forget it existed. Then they unleashed SCP-914, not as a tool, but as a containment protocol, a miscalculation. 682 fed itself into the machine, and what emerged was smarter, smaller, meaner. Adaptation wasn't defense. It was data collection. Every encounter, a field test, a probe, a lesson. Not survival, iteration. It was after Incident 682, Keter Surge, that things changed. The creature had torn through 6 layers of containment, but what it left behind wasn't just destruction. On the walls, symbols etched into titanium, not claw marks, not madness, calculated etchings, recursive glyphs, geometric inscriptions, mathematical diagrams twisted through 4 spatial dimensions. A linguist at Site-73 noticed the pattern. Some of the symbols match partial fragments recovered from SCP-093, the Red Mirror. Others match the skeletal remains from SCP-1512, the collapse point in dimensional reality, where nothing alive was found. Nothing recognizable remained. The word was the same: SEED. SCP-682 doesn't just survive, it despises. And it speaks. words formed from fractured vocal cords, synthetic and cruel. It doesn't scream, it speaks like a machine learning emotion, and it says, "This world is polluted. You are inefficient constructs. Life must be purged. Code must be pure." At first, they assumed it was simply angry, reactive, but over time, they noticed patterns. It didn't hate at random. It hated based on observation. It hated imperfection, deviation, compromise. Every species, every response, every attempt to neutralize it, all of it measured, every act of rage, was a correction, not just to destroy, but to overwrite. Somewhere beneath Site 19, in the archives not listed on any blueprint, a data fragment was recovered, not a file, not a log, a signal, radiating faint pulses inside the deepest EM-shielded core, where even SCP-079 is blind. The signal contained no words, no images, just a sequence, a string of non-biological DNA, self-contained, self-executing, and within that string, a one-to-one match. SCP-682's core structure, not decoded from it, but uploaded into it. It didn't mutate into what it is, it was installed. A foreign concept running on a biological shell, the prototype of something ancient, something that wasn't supposed to wake up here. Not in this cycle, not in this universe. Then came the second anomaly. Other entities began behaving differently. SCP-058, the Heart That Hates, began emitting low-frequency pulses that mimicked 682's biosignature. SCP-610, the Flesh That Hates, ceased expansion temporarily after 682's last breach, redirecting itself toward points of containment interference. SCP-1000, long dormant, began vocalizing short bursts of unknown language, echoing the glyphs 682 had carved. It wasn't just a monster anymore. It was a vector. Something was activating, not through infection, but through recognition. They weren't anomalies. They were components, subsystems, all slowly aligning, and SCP-682 was the keystone. With the aid of SCP-3031, a linguistic AI trained to interface with self-organizing code, a final phrase was extracted from a decaying memetic trace left after incident, redacted. It wasn't spoken, it wasn't even thought, it was left, like a handprint on the fabric of reality. It translated into a concept, not a phrase. Stage 1 complete. The Foundation understood. SCP-682 wasn't just indestructible. It wasn't supposed to be destroyed. It was sent here to test our resilience, to harvest data, to document failure. Every reaction, every weapon, every defense, all cataloged, to improve the final version, the true release, which hasn't come yet, but is being built somewhere. They tried everything. Again, they used SCP-173 as a kill mechanism, placing the statue in a sealed chamber with 682 and remote-operated surveillance. The statue froze, not because it was being watched, but because it recognized something higher. The Foundation realized the anomalies weren't resisting 682. They were yielding. Containment wasn't failing. It was being permitted, because if SCP-682 wanted to escape, it wouldn't break walls, it wouldn't tunnel, it wouldn't run, it would activate, and whatever came after would not be containable. So now, ask yourself, what if SCP-682 isn't the enemy? What if it's the blueprint for what's next? A template seeded across broken realities, a trial run, a dark simulation, And we, humanity, were never meant to destroy it, only to test it, refine it. So when the others arrive, they'll know exactly how to build the perfect life form, one that cannot die, one that will not stop, one that will erase all that came before. And SCP-682 was only the beginning. Now, let me ask you something. What if the most dangerous anomalies aren't broken pieces of the world, but drafts, prototypes, test beds for something that hasn't arrived yet? What other what if have you wondered? What question about the anomalies we contain or pretend to contain haunts you most? Tell me in the comments. Because here, in the containment zone, the right questions are always more dangerous than any answer.